two bikes you see behind me I built this year. They're basically 2010 Honda RS750s, and I built a Scrambler copy from the 60s and a flat tracker. Basically what I did with these RS750s was I tore them down to just the chassis and the motor and the wheels. Stepped back, looked at them, tried different things on, moved things around. I don't really work from sketches. I have worked from sketches in the past, but this was more of a gut feeling while I was building these bikes. When we decided to do projects this year, I thought the RS looked like a good starting point because it's kind of like a Volkswagen Beetle. You can make anything out of it that you want. It could be a chopper, it could be a cruiser, it could be a scrambler, flat tracker, anything you want. On the Scrambler, I started with a stock 750. I tore it down, figured out how I was going to modify the rear part of the frame and the swing arm to tuck everything in closer. The gas tank seat grab rail was very important on the Scrambler because that was kind of an icon touchstone part on the bike. When you're sitting on the bike, you see the handlebars, the Scrambler handlebars, the gauge of where it's at. I lowered the gauge about 3/4 of an inch. I found an aftermarket headlight that was the right size, made the fork ears for the headlight mount to look like a 60s motorcycle. The fork boots, of course, cover the sliders on it, make it look more like a 60s bike too. I painted the lower legs because the early Scramblers, the lowers were steel and they were painted the same color as the chassis. My history with the 305 Scrambler goes way back. When I was a junior high, my older brother had a 305 Scrambler. In 1970, he ran into the back of a pickup and launched him and a buddy into the tail bed of the pickup. So my first 305 Scrambler project was his crashed Scrambler. And basically I had a custom bike. I was the coolest kid in high school. The gas tank was very important. It's a long tank. It's not quite shaped like the stock Scrambler, so I used some GB250 Honda knee pads we got out of Japan and some small Honda emblems to use on the side of the gas tank. I also kept the seam on the bottom of the tank and added a seam to the top of the tank to make it look more like a 60s bike. That's the way they used to make the gas tanks. The front fender was pretty much stock. It's good the way it is. We just painted it. The tires were very important. I used the stock wheels. I took them apart, powder coated the hubs and the rims, and then put on some Scrambler style tires. But those are just the stock wheels. Stock sprockets and gearing. We painted the chassis after I finished up the modifications on the rear. Swing arm, chain guard, just like the mid-60s Honda Scramblers were. The seat shape was very important also, with the hand grab strap across the center. And just when I was building this bike, I didn't want to basically build it like a stock Scrambler, but I wanted to make it look like if Honda built a Scrambler today, how would they do it? And that's what the mindset that I used when I was building the project. The flat tracker was probably the most complicated bike to build. I took a stock motorcycle, stripped it down, took all the parts off it. I kept the front fork legs, triple trees, the front part of the frame. I cut everything off behind the swing arm and then just redid everything behind the swing arm. I used the stock swing arm, braced it for a monoshock. Also, to get the flat track feel of the bike, the suspension in the back is jacked up about 1.5 inches and the front forks are shortened about 1 inch to steepen up the fork angle to make it feel more like a flat tracker. Also, the foot pegs, if you're riding it, you'll notice that the left foot peg is higher than the right. That's the way a flat tracker is. So I want to get that feel to it too. We also got a original RS750 flat tracker seat. Guy had the molds for it in Indiana, and I cut the number plates off of that and then made a nice stock feeling seat for it, a more comfortable seat. On the flat tracker, you're probably wondering what that thing is hanging off the right side. That's basically the stock fuel pump. I left it in that location because I wanted to make it look like a race part. Some people think it's an oil filter, oil cooler, but it's actually necessary, and I didn't build a cover over it because I wanted people to see the hoses and the castings, and it just looks like a race bike part. Yeah, both exhaust systems on the bikes were built out of bends, welded together, and then Obviously the scramblers were chromed and the flat trackers were ceramic coated. There was a lot of work into those, grinding the welds down, making them look like they were mandrel bent. And I wanted both bikes to be relatively quiet too. The flat tracker has two 24-inch perforated core baffles in the mufflers, and it's got a nice sound to it.